Okay, so we've talked about everything I've just talked about is all based on archaeological research because neither the Jomon nor the Yayoi people in these two periods had a writing system. So everything we know about them is from archaeological research. The Chinese, though, in China, the Empire of China on the Asian mainland, did have a very, very intricate writing system and a very advanced civilization already in this period. So they like to talk about their neighbors in their history books, and they knew about Japan. They knew about the Yayoi people because they had people going to Japan, right? They're the ones who brought in the white rice cultivation and the bronze and the iron. So in their history books, they refer to Japan as the land of Wa. Okay, Wa in this translation is dwarf. Okay, so we don't know if that was in a literal sense that the Japanese of that time were shorter than the Chinese, or if they meant that in a idiomatic sense of they were less advanced and so shorter because they were not as culturally advanced as the Chinese. And in their books, the Chinese mention that there was hundreds of small villages and communities spread out in the land of Wa, okay, and they all lived in small communities and villages. And actually, in the year 57, right in the middle of the Yayoi period, we have a delegation from Japan, from Yayoi, Japan, traveling to China, okay, and they visited the Chinese emperor when they went to China to visit their neighbor. And when they went to China, they received this gold seal of acknowledgement, as you see on the right side, this gold, ornament, and as a acknowledgement that you have had you've met the Chinese emperor. That's a big deal back in those days. So it's an acknowledgement that I have graced you with my presence, type of thing. And so the Yayoi, the delegation from Japan took this back to Japan, and they buried it somewhere. We don't know, we don't know what happened to it. All these years it was talked about over the centuries, from 57 through 1784. No one knew about this mysterious seal, where it ended up. And centuries later, it was found somewhere in Kyushu in 1784, and it's now in a museum. So we know that this story took place. And a couple of centuries later, in the 230s, the Chinese wrote about Japan again, okay, in their history books, but some time has passed. So now they don't refer to it as the land of Wa anymore. This time they call it Yamatai, okay, Yamatai. And this was they refer to it as a kingdom. We don't know where it existed exactly, but historians believe it was located somewhere in Honshu, which makes sense, the center of Japanese civilization, near present-day Kyoto or Nara, okay, which is kind of the cradle of Japanese civilization and history. And the Chinese have a very interesting a note in this history book because they mention that this Yamatai land, somewhere in Yayoi, Japan, the ruler of this land was actually a woman, and her name was Queen Himiko, okay? And they refer to her in the history books, and they talk about her. Okay, so probably someone from China visited Japan, visited Yamatai, and maybe met her because they mentioned that she was a shaman, and she mediated between the gods and her people. So if they had a problem, she would practice sorcery and make their problems go away. Okay, and she didn't rule by herself. She had a younger brother who apparently helped her rule over the country. Probably she was the shaman, so she took care of the big issues, right, dealing with the people, and he just helped with administrative matters, right? And it also makes reference to the fact that she had 1,000 female attendants and only one male attendant. Okay, so these little facts were given in the Chinese history books. We don't know how accurate they were, but they found a reason to bring that up. So this is a picture of Queen Himiko on the right, wearing the red robe, and her brother. Okay, and then here in this picture we have lots of guards. Okay, these are not her attendants, but her the people guarding her. And as you can see from the pictures, very, very different from what you consider to be traditional Japanese costume or clothing, right? Very different. It's more akin to almost Southeast Asian type of Polynesian clothing and decoration. So very different than what we consider to be Japanese, right? Um, Aesthetics or clothes. And even though they were different from modern Japanese in terms of clothing and aesthetics, they did during the Yayoi period start to adopt many of the same cultural characteristics as the Japanese today. Okay, for example, they showed respect to each other by bowing, something that still takes place in Japan today. When they prayed, they would clap their hands together. This is still done by the Japanese today when they worship. So this is, even though the Yayoi period is not the same really culturally as what we think of as traditional Japanese culture, they start to adopt a lot of these traits as we enter the Yayoi period. Whenever you see that, there's some sort of shrine there. So when you pass through the gate, you're entering the holy shrine. And as soon as you enter a Shinto shrine, don't just walk up to the shrine area, okay? You need to purify yourself before you walk near the shrine. So ritual purification, again, part of this shamanistic base of Shinto, right? Rituals are very important. So purifying yourself is very important. You must wash your hands and rinse your mouth before entering the shrine grounds. And there's always a water area located at the entrance of the shrine for people to purify themselves ritually before they enter the kami's residence.
This is a manner you might know when you visit a shrine.
Culture about how
First
to visit
of all,
a Shinto
you
shrine
need to purify yourself by washing your hands and mouth at this kind of water place. We call it chojiya.
You need to
And
purify
almost all
yourself by
shrines
washing
have
your
it.
hands and mouth at this
Dip up
kind of
water
water
and
place.
pour over from the left
We call
hand
it
and to the right
chojiya.
one.
And almost all shrines have it.
Then,
Dip up
rinse your
water
mouth.
and pour over from the left
Beware
hand
lest
and
your
to the
mouth
right one.
directly touch the dipper.
Then,
Lastly,
rinse your
wash
mouth.
the dipper and the
Beware
purification
lest
is
your mouth
completed.
directly touch the dipper.
Next,
Lastly, wash the
this is how
dipper
to
and the
make a wish to
purification
gods
is
at Shinto
completed.
shrine. To begin with, throw a coin as an offering.
Next,
It's an
this
offertory
is how
box.
to make a wish to
Then,
gods at Shinto
bow
shrine.
twice.
To begin with, throw a coin as an offering. It's an offertory box.
Clap your hands twice.
Then, bow twice.
Make a wish during a series of this last motion.
Clap your
And
hands
finally
twice.
bow once again.
Make a wish during a series of this last motion. And finally bow once again.
Okay, so that's a little tip about if you ever visit a Shinto shrine in Japan, what you can do to fit in. So Shinto is still around today, obviously. It is one of the main Japanese religions, alongside with Buddhism. And lesson 2, we'll learn about how Buddhism comes into Japan and what role it plays in the society. And it's important because many of these ritual elements of Shinto that we see, the shamanistic traits and such, these are directly descended from the practices of the Japanese people during the Yayoi period. So it's really a result of this ancestor worship, nature worship, and shamanism that was practiced in the beginning of the Yayoi period. These practices turned into the religion of Shinto that is still practiced today as the main religion of Japan. Okay? So even though Shinto does not have a moral code or a holy book, right, it is rich in mythology because it's very big on, stories of the kami, of the gods, right? And so you need some sort of story, some sort of mythology, so people know who they are worshiping, right? And Shinto believes that the two kami who created the Japanese islands were Izanagi, the male, and Izanami, the female. There are two gods who created the Japanese islands and are responsible for its creation. Okay, so Izanagi and Izanami, the two kami who were responsible for creating the islands, they had a daughter, and her name is Amaterasu Omikami. Okay, and she is the sun goddess because both her parents were kami. So she, is the main god, right? The goddess, the sun goddess. And even today in the Shinto religion, and has always been so, but she has always been considered the most important and sacred kami in the Shinto religion. Okay, there's many, many kami, right? It's not a monotheistic religion. It's polytheistic. So there's many, many gods, but she's considered the most important one, the most sacred one. Period.